Hey guys, so today's video is slightly different because I am waiting for approval for my video. It's a sponsored video. I just need to wait for it to get approved. So my Trisha video is coming. It's going to be part 3 of like the whole saga. I don't think it's the last part. And also like since filming and editing and sending that video off in a day, because that was yesterday, so much has managed to happen. So like that video is already behind and I'm going to have to stop filming for a video right after that before even posting that video. Like that's how much is happening. And because of that, I've missed out on some like good tea. I have this video, then I have another video planned with just like mini tea stuff. Because I find that like there's just so much interesting stuff happening, but I don't have time to talk about it because of the Trisha, Shane, Jeffrey debacle. Today's video is going to be maybe a little bit longer. I mean, I tried to condense my notes as much as possible, but I have 2 pages of notes essentially. When I was first planning this video, essentially by like video number 2, like when I was watching videos, I already had like 5 pages of notes. I deleted everything and I started again because I was like, this is too much. This is too much. No one's got enough time for that. I'm here to condense, and then if you want like the full legal tea, you have to go watch Emily D. Baker's channel. That's essentially who gives me all my legal tea. I'm not from America, so I actually don't know about American laws. So today we're talking about Without a Crystal Ball and Tati. I am going to, if I remember, put all of my Without a Crystal Ball versus Tati videos into a playlist in order of how I filmed them. So this will be just like the continuation of the drama. And if you guys want kind of like more, let's say you're lost, you don't know what's happening, you can go to video 1 and then continue from that point onwards. And I'm going to add this video into that playlist, and then hopefully we can, you know, go from there. So my Instagram, my puppy's Instagram, and my TikTok, which is slowly becoming one of my favorite platforms to be on, will be in description along with anything else that you might need to find. And yeah, let's get into it. So Casey Joy files a motion to dismiss, and it wasn't great. We already established that. It was not great. Like, it looked like she wrote it herself rather than her lawyer writing it for her, which does make sense because she does have a lawyer. But that speaks volumes on the lawyer, I guess? I don't know. So she was trying to move the case from Washington to, you know, wherever would be more convenient for her. And then obviously Tati doesn't want to move the case out of Washington. That's the tea so far. So Tati then responds. She goes on about how there's been constant harassment from Casey Joy, how there's been deletion of evidence, irrelevant case law provided, and no law stated in her motion to dismiss. The shade from paragraph number 1 is already immaculate. I love it. They basically tell the court that they should reject or deny the motion to dismiss because there's no relevant information for why it should be moved out of Washington. Like, there is just nothing there. That's what they're saying. So then they talk about how there is no joint of parties. So what that essentially means is in Katie's filings, whenever they spoke about like, oh, well, Tati's trying to sue me for defamation, but what about all these other people? Why isn't she suing them? And it's like, irrelevant, right? So she was like, Trisha Paytas called her dumb. PewDiePie called her dumb. Like, all of this stuff, as if any of that matters. She then mentioned Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star. Irrelevant. They didn't force you to talk about Tati, unless they did, then like release that information, but like they didn't, so irrelevant. So basically Tati's lawyers are basically just like that's what they're saying. So they talk about how Washington is relevant to this case. So they say, you know, she was looking for Tati's information in Washington, like using Washington sources to figure out stuff about Tati. Remember that iconic clip where she's doing her makeup and she's like, I was trying to look for her birth certificate, and is her dad in the mafia? And why can't I find her divorce papers? It's like, maybe because you shouldn't. Maybe because you shouldn't find out information like that. So basically just saying, like, when she was looking into Washington, she was looking everywhere and digging. Like, those are the exact words that she used. So she looked for a birth certificate, criminal background, childhood, marriage, her father, like a lot of stuff. Like, she must have looked into Washington at some point during those phases. Like, childhood, if you're looking into someone's childhood and their childhood was in Washington, where are you gonna look? In Washington. There's a video of Katie Joy admitting that she knows Tati moved to Seattle. That was another point. So basically, in one of her filings, her lawyers tried to use Zillow, like the real estate website, to basically be like, no, they still lived in LA at this point. As if rich people don't have more than one house. As if rich people don't live in multiple places at the same time. They could have just owned a house. They didn't have to live in it, which is exactly what James said. He was like, we owned this house and we never lived in it. Emily D. Baker actually goes over this and she says, like, there is a big difference between residing somewhere and like living somewhere. So you're gonna have always one place where you pay taxes, where your driver's license is, like all of that stuff, and that's basically where you actually are. Like, this is my place where I am. This is where I do my stuff. So that place for me would be the UK, right? I have my driver's license from here, I pay taxes here. This is where I need to be for most of the year if I want to have the privileges of being in the UK. Like, if I buy a house, like a summer house, let's say, right? I can't be there for more than 6 months because then I would actually be there for most of the year, which means the privileges from the UK don't apply to me anymore. And I'd actually probably have to pay tax in the other place, which is going to get complicated. So if I want to pay taxes in the UK and have privileges of being in the UK, I have to spend most of my year in the UK. But I am allowed to have a summer house. I could just buy a summer house in California, oh I wish, and then just spend like 4 months out of the year there. And I wouldn't have to pay tax there if I didn't work there and I didn't make money there, because I'd be paying taxes and making money in the UK. That's kind of how that works. So I'd be allowed to have 2 houses, but it's about where I am most of the time and where I pay taxes and where my driver's license is and all of that stuff. Like you have to just prove like where you are for most of the year. So that's what they're talking about. Like, yes, they had a house in LA. Yes, they spent some time in LA, but most of the time they are in Seattle. They pay taxes in Seattle and all of that stuff. So basically Washington. That's what I meant. There is a video of Katie Joy saying, like, I know that they moved to Seattle. So like, why are you now acting like this is new information for you? So then they basically say like she 100% has to know that some of her viewers are in Washington. Like this is because she tried to claim that like she has no viewers in Washington. Like how is it not a single viewer in Washington? Not a single I bet there's one person from Washington watching me right now. If you're watching me from Washington, please let me know in the comments. They also talk about like significant contacts in Washington. There's like a legal test for that to prove that she has significant like connections to Washington during this case. I'm not going to get into that. That's like proper law talk. If you want to get all of that, go to Emily D. Baker's channel. I'm just here to summarize the case for you because there is some tea at the end of this. When I say the best is saved for last, yeah. When I went in chronological order, I was getting more and more shocked until I came to the last video and I was like, oh my god. There was stuff that she showed in videos that proved that she knew and saw that Tati and James were in Seattle. Like she showed business addresses by accident, or she blurred addresses out, which means she had to see them to blur them out. Like she knew all of this. So then is her declaration a lie? I don't know, you tell me. Then they talk about analytics, so you can check where your people are from, like where people watching your videos are from. You can just check by cities, countries, states, so you can check it by a variety of things. Yeah, you can check it by loads of things. So like for her to be like, oh, I know for a fact that no one's watching me. So like, did you check your analytics? Because if you didn't, then that is a lie. They then mention how Katie Joy said that she would not stop going after Tati, how she taunted her and was basically like, oh, she's not going to sue me. And then she basically said that if she does get sued, she's going to like abuse the discovery system to find out more information about Tati to then expose her further. She also said how she basically is using this as revenge against Tati for the stuff that she did against James Charles, which basically lines up with what she said in her own filing, which is that Tati is like more at fault than Katie Joy because of what she did to James Charles. They also mentioned how Zillow is not a reliable source of information. It's also not evidence for anything. So the fact that her lawyer put that in there, he was like, Zillow, here's my evidence. Then there was a judicial notice. So they said how Katie Joy uses false / like not proven information in declarations and videos, how she is using Clark Swanson's statements in her declaration. So she relies on his statements, which are false, in her own declaration, which then makes her statements in her declaration false. They mentioned the $5 million thing, how apparently Clark Swanson's being sued for $5 million, which is not the case. He's not being sued for $5 million, and it just said $5 million so that it can go like down a different court track. She then uses that to be like, oh, I'm being sued for $5 million too, which means that Tati's trying to sue me for $5 million, so she has $5 million to pay Clark Swanson in her lawsuit. They also mentioned how she's relying on like not involved third parties, for example, Trisha Paytas, PewDiePie, of unknown credibility. That's like the actual phrase they use. Like they have unknown credibility. Why would you rely on people that are not involved in this case for your information, for your filings, for this lawsuit? And they also have mentioned how the court should deny a request for judicial notice for like some of the stuff that she filed. Anyway, iconic. Moving on. Then James has his own declaration along with Tati. They kind of say similar things at the start, but then James kind of spills more of the tea. So I'm just going to mention James's declaration, and Tati's basically sounded very similar. He says how they live in Washington. He mentions how YouTube income works, like how people make money on YouTube. He mentions Katie Joy's merch, which says it's just facts on it. So like, is everything in your videos just facts? And if it is, then you're admitting that everything you're saying is facts rather than commentary and opinions, which then would mean that it's actually defamation because you're saying that all the stuff you said about Tati and James and their past and their family and all of that stuff is just facts. That's on your merch. You like make people pay for that. Then he mentions this clip of Katie Joy saying that a lot of stuff I say is lies and for views. She could have slipped up, misspoke, I'm not sure, but she did say a lot of the stuff I say is lies and for views. I don't know why she would say that. If it's not a misspeak, I don't know why she would say that, but it's now in this lawsuit. Then he mentions all the deleted / privated videos by Katie Joy and that the Katie Joy declaration has untrue statements. Big words, Big fighting words right there. Then there are declarations by other people, for example, viewers of Tati's that then saw Katie Joy's videos and decided to not support Tati's business, aka Halo Beauty. So they basically said the Bye Sister scandal was not the reason why I stopped watching Tati, it was Katie Joy's videos. Some of them said that they had a subscription for Halo Beauty that they then stopped or cancelled, or they didn't continue buying because of the videos by Katie Joy, accusing her husband of being a criminal, accusing, you know, Tati of being a liar, like all of that stuff. So they're basically proving damages, and only one needs to stick. Like, they only need to prove that they lost like this one customer to prove damages. Like, they don't have to prove massive amounts of damages. According to Emily D. Baker, that's not my wording, that's her wording. Like, that's enough. Like, losing one customer is enough. Then we have Tati's new filing, which is basically like, I'm adding new stuff in. Like, I know I spilt all the tea there, but I'm adding new stuff in. Which is basically, there was a live stream on December 29th about Lorianne from Washington. Katie Joy said she has no viewers from Washington. Here is one viewer from Washington. Basically, they showed screenshots of Lorianne being a member. So like, she pays a monthly fee to be a member. Like, you know, when you have that join button on YouTube, yeah. Or like Patreon, stuff like that, where you actually are a member and you pay a monthly fee to be a member of someone's channel. She also donates money all the time in live chats on YouTube when Katie Joy's streaming. So she is not only a viewer from Washington, but she's also a source of income from Washington. And there is actually a contractual relationship between Lorianne and Katie Joy. When you sign up for a membership, it's technically a contractual like relationship, right? You're paying for a service to be provided. If that service is not provided, you can cancel your membership. But that's a contractual relationship. There's a declaration by Michael Saltz, who is Tati's lawyer, basically saying that Katie Joy has knowledge that she makes income from Washington, aka Lorianne's membership. She's deleting videos / hiding comments to make this hard to find. That Lorianne was basically like attacking Michael Saltz, DMing him, that she has the membership, the live chat, like he basically gave a background of who Lorianne is as a person. Lorianne then deletes all of her accounts to hide evidence. And Katie Joy actually mentions in one of her live streams to not mention where people are from, because people usually would be like, hi from Washington, hi from California, hi from somewhere. She's like, please stop doing that. Is it possible that this is just like a privacy thing? Sure. But it's odd that after they filed this thing saying your fans are from Washington, so you can't have a motion to dismiss it and move it somewhere else because your fans are from Washington and you're affecting us in Washington, that she's now like, guys, don't say where you're from because some of you are probably from Washington and I don't want you guys to say that. So yeah, then he mentions how a membership is basically a contractual relationship between the YouTuber and the person who is subscribing to the membership. Then there is a joint status report and discovery plan where they basically say how they're going to subpoena Lorianne's accounts, because there was a screenshot of Katie Joy's screen where you can see her DMs on Twitter, and one of those DMs is with Lorianne. Katie Joy then responds. She mentions some case law for why it needs to be moved out of state. She says a lot of stuff about how they're residents of California. Basically, Emily D. Baker explains how you can obviously reside somewhere, even if it's like a holiday home, you can reside somewhere for 2 weeks out of the year. Doesn't mean that you're actually living there and that's like your place of stay, like your permanent place of stay. So she's basically like, I think they're confused. Weirdly, she's like, yeah, they can reside in LA every now and then, but they're basically saying like, we are in Seattle. Like, all our business is in Seattle. We pay taxes in Seattle. We are in Seattle for most of the year. And therefore, LA is irrelevant to this conversation. She then accuses them of lying in declaration about where they live / lived. She mentions like taxes from 2019. That is something that the courts are going to need to sort out. I don't know where Tati lives. You know, I'm not her neighbor. I'm not knocking on her door, borrowing some sugar. I don't know where they are. They could be anywhere, but they're saying they're in Seattle. She's saying they're in LA. The courts are going to have to decide. She claims that she didn't use Washington sources when she was looking into birth certificates, address, background of family, yada, yada, yada. Then there is a supplemental declaration from Katie Joy where she basically starts to, like, instead of her lawyers speaking, she's speaking on behalf of herself. And she's saying that she didn't use State of Washington for this, like for any of this. That she used Ancestry.com and like this other website, I can't remember what it's called, and I didn't write it down. There's like another one that's very similar to Ancestry.com where you look into people's backgrounds, which I think those websites are very creepy. I don't know why other people can access such personal information about you so freely. Why is that a thing? How's it point? Okay, and this comes up, and the lawyers caught this as well. Emily D. Baker caught this. She says 0.07 of her subscribers, focus guys, focus, 0.07% of her subscribers are from Washington. So she looks into her analytics. She said, here's my analytics, guys. And then she says, 40% of my views are from outside of the US. Why are we comparing subs to views? Why Didn't you say how many of your views came from Washington? Why did you just say subs? Because here's the thing, right? Subscribers aren't as important as people think it is. Like, yeah, having subscribers is nice because it's like a loyal, constant fan base. But then that also isn't the case, right? Like, if you have, I don't know, let's just say 600,000 subs. Is it guaranteed you're going to get 600,000 views per video? No, absolutely not. Which is why we see so many channels with like such inconsistent, like such weird ratios where they'll have like 2 million subs but only 50,000 views per video, which means that a lot of those subscribers aren't watching their videos. Subscribers aren't as important as views, because if you think about it, you could be subscribed to my channel and never watch a single one of my videos. So what I say doesn't impact your opinion or your view of something. But you could be not subscribed to me and still watch every single one of my videos, and therefore then what I say has more of an impact on you than someone who's technically subscribed to me but doesn't watch my videos. Do you see how views versus subscribers? It was cheeky of her to do. She's like, well, 0.07 of my subs are from Washington and 40% of my views are outside of the US. Why didn't you say this many percentage-wise of my views are from Washington and this many are from not Washington? Lorianne is mentioned. She says, I don't know who she is. I didn't know she was from Washington. She's not my friend. We have limited interactions. I think she said on rare occasion. That was the wording she used. Even though she publicly called her best friend, it was like, she's basically like, I didn't mean it. Tati's lawyers file a request for leave to file reply. They basically just correct a few things that Katie said. So they said that Katie Joy made new arguments in her motion to dismiss, which is not supposed to happen. You're only supposed to respond to stuff, but you're not supposed to add in new arguments. How some of the evidence she provided is inadmissible. So Katie Joy then in her declaration also mentions Ancestry.com, and she basically says something along the lines of like, I believe it works like this. When in reality they're like, you're not an expert in Ancestry.com, you're not a representative of Ancestry.com. You saying, I believe this website works like this as a non-expert of that website, it's not evidence and it's not admissible. Then he addresses the analytics, viewers versus subs. He's like, why did she do that? Why did she only mention viewers from everywhere else but subs from Washington? So then the big thing comes in. This is iconic. This happened literally a few days ago. Well, maybe like a week ago, I think. Lorianne filed a declaration and not on Katie Joy's side. No. On Tati's side. Lorianne, one of like her most loyal fans, one of her most loyal members, always arguing on Katie Joy's behalf, is now filing a declaration on behalf of Tati's side. So she says how they have been personal Facebook friends for a while, and she has her location on Facebook, so like she must have seen that she's from Washington. They've also mentioned in conversation where they're from. So she has told her before that I am from Washington. She then became a paying member on YouTube, and during that time, Katie did post stuff about Tati, James, and the lawsuit. So she's basically saying like, I did pay her, so she made an income from me while I was in Washington when she spoke about Tati and James. That is significant. She said that they communicated frequently through DMs, messages, emails, and that she has the proof for that. Versus what Katie Joy referred to as rare contact. Katie Joy referred to her as a fierce protector, so she like helped her out when people were attacking her. And I bet there's proof for this. I bet there's conversations, because like she says that Katie Joy made her do this. So because they're not in the same state, they had to do this either over the phone or messages. I'm assuming messages. So there is probably proof for this that's going to be used in court. Katie Joy made Lorianne go after her competition. So whenever she was being critiqued in any way, shape or form, she would make Lorianne flag people's accounts, like from multiple accounts. She would like mass flag people's accounts for like inappropriate content. It was mainly during the Sanders Kennedy situation, which was being really criticized, which, you know, flagging someone's account can lead to demonetization as well as taking down their channel. So that's quite clearly proof of Katie Joy trying to deplatform people that are speaking out against her. I'm going to get into that. She mainly mentioned names like Lil Red and Sherelle's World. So I want to know what those two people have to say about this, because they were on the verge of being demonetized / you know, having their channel taken away from them. I want to bring this up as I remember I was having a big argument with Katie Joy over emails because she was telling me how I had to take down my videos on her as they were technically illegal because I was trying to take down competition, which is against competition law. How basically I was just trying to like create a monopoly, right? Like, you know, when let's say like Amazon is being accused of being a monopoly because they take down competition so they can have more customers for themselves. That's basically what she accused me of doing, which is like my videos, all of this, critiquing her are essentially me trying to become a monopoly. It's basically like the gist of the emails. I told her, bullshit. And if you truly think that, then you also think that you're trying to create a monopoly by critiquing other people, right? In my emails to her, I was like, everything you're saying to me could be used against you. And you're in a defamation suit. I'm not. She was like, your videos on me are harassment and defamation. And I said to her, Katie Joy, if my 4 videos on you at the time are harassment and defamation, then I wonder what your 80 videos on Tati Westbrook are. Are they harassment and defamation? Your words, not mine. I didn't say this. You did. So she basically accused me of like trying to take down competition while also making people report other people's channel so that it would get taken down or demonetized because they're criticizing her. She mentioned how Katie Joy was spreading false information about Shane Dawson at the time during the Sanders Kennedy situation, which is tea. Mentioned how Katie Joy would say things like, you and Lorianne will be on the hunt for me. So like when people are critiquing her, she was like, you're gonna be on the hunt for me to take them all down. So she mentioned how Katie Joy said that they only spoke on a few occasions, and she said that that's false. And it's also false when she says that she doesn't know I'm from Washington, because she does. We had multiple conversations about this. She said that she would also make her deliver messages to people that she has blocked on Twitter. So like if she wanted to get a point across without unblocking them and saying it herself, she would make Lorianne go and tell them. So every time that she did something on her behalf, she was in Washington, which is significant. She didn't like the toxic environment and distance herself from Katie Joy. Katie Joy told Lorianne not to contact Michael Saltz because, so Lorianne was like, had some issues, and basically Katie was like, don't contact Michael Saltz about this, contact my lawyer. And that's where the communication between Lorianne and Mr. Brown started. She feels like he manipulated her and lied to her through emails by basically saying things that weren't true. So saying things like, oh, the other side's not filing this yet because they're trying to do this, this, and this, when in reality they didn't file it because they didn't have to yet. Like it was like a lot of like misleading stuff to get her to think that the other side is like plotting against her. He told her that he would represent her, and emails have been passed on to Michael Saltz, but they haven't been posted publicly just because of privacy reasons. She's like, I don't want my information out there. I don't want like the content of the emails out there, but they have been passed on to Michael Saltz and they will be used in the case. Mr. Brown wanted her to make a declaration against Michael Saltz, like write a declaration, like the way she just wrote a declaration now. Yeah, he wanted one against Michael Saltz, but also he wanted her to delay the subpoena. So she said to Brown, let's just call him Brown. She said to Brown, I want to hand over my Twitter account to Michael Saltz just so he can see what me and Katie Joy spoke about. And he said, no, we need to delay this. He gave her legal advice, but also encouraged her to file a bar complaint against Michael Saltz. Like, you know how you have to pass the bar to be a lawyer, and the bar can also ban you from essentially being a lawyer. If you get too many complaints, they'll start like a case against you. Yeah, so he encouraged her to file a complaint against Michael Saltz for harassment and threats. He gave her legal advice on the bar complaint as well as discovery, like what she should say in discovery and what she shouldn't say. He tried to force her to sign a declaration saying that Michael Saltz threatened her. Then she cut off all communication with them because of an error. So there is Lorianne, who used to work for the government, which is her. And there is another Lorianne who also works for the government, and people accidentally were doxing the other Lorianne that works for the government rather than the actual Lorianne, like this Lorianne. It's kind of a coincidence that they both called Lorianne and they both work for the government. People got very confused. And she said to him, like, can you correct this? Because Michael Saltz is looking into the other Lorianne rather than me, which is wasting time because he's looking into the wrong person. Can you just let them know? And at no point did they let Michael Saltz know, which is a waste of time. And at that point, she said that she cut off all communication with them and called Michael Saltz. And in a matter of a day, Michael Saltz managed to make this declaration happen, which is the biggest piece of tea I've ever read. And that's it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, comment down below anything you want to comment down below, and subscribe to post videos every time something happens. Hit that bell, you'll be notified when that's happening. Social media links, any other links in the description. I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.